Question 107 in the name of Deputy Stephen Matthews.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach. Minister, I also want to ask about the pandemic unemployment payment and where persons are currently in receipt of that payment and they are offered short-term temporary work or especially in the music industry where there might be a gig on, they can go back to work in it. Will they be allowed to return to the payment following the completion of that work? Or if not, will they be required to apply for job seekers allowance? And Minister, could you make a statement on, do you think that will be a disincentive for people in that industry?
Thanks, Deputy Minister.
Thanks, thank you, Cathaoirleach, and thank you, Deputy Matthews, for raising this issue. The Pandemic Unemployment Payment, or PUP, was an emergency measure introduced in the exceptional circumstances of COVID-19 to help cushion the financial impact of people temporarily laid off work as a direct result of public health measures mandated by the government. It has been an important support for hundreds of thousands of workers and their families through COVID-19. To date, over €8 billion has been paid out on the PUP to nearly 900,000 recipients. As part of the National Economic Recovery Plan, the Government announced the extension of the Pandemic Unemployment Payment until February 2022, meaning that a payment that was originally intended to be in place for just 12 weeks will run for almost 2 years. In light of the Government decision to defer the lifting of certain public health restrictions on the 5th of July, I have announced that the PUP scheme will remain open for new applications until the 8th of July, which is a week later than previously announced. This will ensure staff who may have returned to work this week in anticipation of indoor hospitality reopening on July the 5th will have the opportunity to reapply for the PUP if they need to. From the 8th of July, people who are laid off should apply online for a standard job seekers payment, including the increases for adult and child dependents as appropriate. In most cases, given people were granted paid social insurance contributions while in receipt of the PUP, people who take up employment from PUP will qualify for job seekers benefit in the event that they need to claim a job seekers payment in the future. Given its exceptional nature, there will undoubtedly be some cases where the transition from PUP into employment or onto another welfare payment will give rise to some questions. However, I am pleased to say that our experience has shown that people are willing to return to work as restrictions are eased. This confirms research by the ESRI that indicates that the vast majority of people choose to take up work rather than remain on welfare, even in situations where the financial benefit of working is low, or in some cases even where it is negative.
Thank you, Minister. Deputy Matthews.
Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, I'm particularly referring to the music industry and the large cohort of people that work in that, in sound and power and production, and where they may be offered gigs throughout the summer. There might be 2 or 3 days of work there, and that's through other government supports, through Minister Martin's department supports for live music events. If somebody takes up that work, they know it's only going to be for 2 or 3 days. They know their events, their industry is not open fully. Will they be able to return back onto the PUP payment at the end of that 2 or 3 day gig that they might get, or a series of gigs throughout the summer? We know that industry is not going to open up fully. And so I take, for example, I have a sound engineer down in Wicklow, and absolutely top of his game and in high demand. But there isn't work out there for him at the moment. And if he gets offered a couple of days' work, he has to weigh up, is he going to end up back on job seekers at the end of this work? It's important that he keeps his talent active and keeps his craft, his skills alive.
Deputy.
But he has to weigh up the benefits of taking on that work.
Minister.
Thank you, Deputy. I suppose I want to make it clear here in the House again, because you know, sometimes there's misinformation regarding artists or musicians. I do not expect artists or musicians to retrain or reskill. That's just, I just want to make that clear, because I know I was misquoted here before, not by you, Deputy, but by others. All of my department is doing is making people on the PUP aware of the different supports that's available to them. Now, you mentioned the point there about if they're on the PUP, which I have worked very closely with them, and they can earn up to €960 over an 8-week period and still maintain their payment. I'm working also very closely with Minister Catherine Martin and in terms of a basic income guarantee scheme for artists. That's something that we want to introduce. We have worked with the sector. There is the part-time job incentive scheme if they come off the PUP, so maybe they can look at that scheme. So there's a number of schemes available there, but I can't do sector-specific schemes in social welfare. I'm just going to be straight up here. It's not possible to do it. But I do know that, in fairness, Minister Martin has put a lot of support and a lot of investment into the music and the entertainment sector.
Thank you, Catherine. Minister, look, I accept you can't do sector-specific, but in those sectors that can't open, we know they can't open, because, or in very limited circumstances, because of crowd control measures or because of social distancing. And the government and ministry pointed out there's been unprecedented support for welfare payments and employment supports across the last 15 months, and I think everybody recognises that. But we have to look at these cases and allow this flexibility where we do want these people to return to work, and they want to return to work. That's their job. That's what they love doing. They want to be out there entertaining and putting on these shows. And I'm not just talking about the artists, I'm not just talking about the person on the stage, but behind every lighting rig and behind every sound desk, there's a really qualified, skilled engineer working away there. And we want to allow them to work, but we don't want them to have to face a situation where they say, I'm going to take two gigs during the summer, but I'm going to go back onto a lesser payment because my industry isn't open. And we have to address that, Minister.
Minister.
I think, Deputy, we have to also look at, and be fair with these schemes, we have to look at all of the people who are on the standard job seekers payment, who since prior to the pandemic, and we have, as I said, I can't have sector-specific payments in social welfare, and that has always been the case. And to be fair now, Minister Martin has worked extremely closely with that sector, and there has been a good deal of supports made available through government. I'm happy to engage with them as always, but I've been very clear on this that I can't just have a specific support that looks at one sector and not at another sector. So anything we do in social welfare is across the board. But these payments have been going on now for over almost 2 years, well, a year and a half, as I've said, and they will continue to next February, which will be almost 2 years.
Deputy Derek Calleary, question 108.